Welcome back to Being the Odds. It is Saturday, August 5th, 2023, and we are back with a little special edition Being the Odds. We're actually here to talk about the college football realignment, because I'm seeing a lot of stuff on my Twitter and on my social media talking about how college football is dead. I have a completely different opinion on that, and I want to share it with you guys here today. But if you're new to the channel, my name is Zach, and welcome to Being the Odds. Hit that subscribe button, like this video, hit the notification bell. We're primarily a sports pick channel. Like, we do picks every single day in just about every single sport. MLB is in progress right now, but we're off of winning years in the NFL, college football, NBA, and college basketball, and a winning year in the NHL too, which is pretty surprising. And we're going after our first 10,000 subscribers, so I'm really excited to have y'all here. Let's go win together today. Let's go make some money. So first things first, guys. I mean, right now the college football realignment is nuts, and I'm seeing like a lot of news about it and how these old heads are telling me like, oh, college football's dead. It's a shittier version of the NFL. First things first. That's just dumb. This could be one of the best things that could possibly happen for college football. Now, it could also fuck it up. But for me, I really like the fact that they're doing some realignment here. So first things first, it's going to be awkward as hell this year for certain schools. But it's time to cherish the memories with these classic matchups. We're still going to have those matchups that people think, because the realignment's happening this summer, that it's going to change anything for this year. It's not going to change anything for this year. It'll be changing for next year. But I have four big takeaways from this realignment, four big opinions, and this is what I got. The first thing is first, guys, is that the Pac-12 being dismantled isn't the end of the world. When you think about the best like regional matchups, because that's one thing that I keep hearing, it's like college football is so regional and you love the matchups, and we do. Just to be clear, like it's fantastic. College football is absolutely incredible, and you know, if you were to separate the NFL and college football, those are my number one, number two favorite sports. Football is just I just love it so much. And the regional rivalries are awesome. But when you think about like just the average college football fan, unless you are a Pac-12 fan, unless you are that, what are the matchups that you really think of? Like when you hear the CBS music or the ESPN music, what do you think of? For me, what I think of is this. It's mostly SEC schools. I think about like Alabama and Georgia, still intact. Georgia and Florida, still intact. Auburn, Alabama, still intact. Ohio State, Michigan, still intact. Penn State, Ohio State. Penn State, Michigan. Penn State, Wisconsin. I think about like these things. Most of our big matchups and most of our big regional matchups still are alive and are still intact. Now, you could say, well, because of the bigger conference size, those won't be there as much. I would assume, given the fact that this is a college football and that they're not idiots and they want great ratings, that they're going to make sure they preserve those matchups. And that would just be stupid. That would be dumb. So the fact is like when you look at it, like these big time matchups that we're thinking about, these regional matchups, like, oh my God, what on earth? Like, they're still intact in the big schools. I mean, plus you could be like, well, Zach, what about like the Big 12? Listen, the Big 12 map still makes sense, other than having like UCF and Cincinnati in there. That it makes sense. And you're talking at Arizona State. They're moving to the Big 12 and Utah. I mean, those teams are clustered together. First off, I don't think it's the end of the world, because the Pac-12 is the weakest football conference anyway. So, and they're also the weakest basketball conference. So the fact is that we're just making the other conferences stronger. That brings me to number two. First off, the second thing that I think about is this, that the best Pac-12 going off rivalries is that the Pac-12 or the Pac-10, however you looked at it, I grew up with the Pac-10, their biggest rivalries are still intact. Like, they're still in the same division. First off, USC and Oregon, still going to happen. Every single year, probably. UCLA, we still have that. UCLA, Oregon, we still have that. USC and Washington, because when Washington has the right coach, I mean, they're electric. But like they're going to play against the University of Washington. Like, cool, awesome. Washington versus Oregon is still great. These are all still alive. I mean, look at the Big 12 too. The Arizona schools are still together in the Big 12, so they're still going to play each other. That's still there. We're going to miss Utah versus a bunch of teams. Like, I mean, because Utah's so good. But what's funny is people are talking about Utah and like, how are we gonna live without Utah versus USC every year, guys? If you didn't remember, like Utah became a member of the Pac-10 or the Pac-12 in like 2010, 2011, 2012. I'm forgetting the exact year, but it was the early 2010s. It's not like we grew up with Utah versus USC in the 1980s. That didn't exist. So the fact is that we still have the best matchups. We still have the best rivalries. We still have all of this stuff. I just don't understand why people are freaking out about it. Third thing that I think about, we're going to have some weird as fuck matchups next year. And listen, are there going to be some weird, like really weird ones? Yeah, like for example, waking up at noon and seeing USC versus Rutgers in November is going to be fucking hilarious. That's the first thing. You know, when you see like Maryland versus UCLA on on a Saturday, it makes no sense for football in particular. Now basketball is actually probably pretty good. But the thing is that when you look at, like in all reality, like one thing that I know I've heard Bill complain about is like, Not just having but having the same matches over and over again. It's like, what happens? What happened if like Oregon played like Penn State as an example? People like talk about that. Not that specific matchup, but just these weird matchups that are cross conference. Well, now we have them. Now we have them. And the fact is, guys, like one of the reasons why the regional thing was so big, I mean, is because in the early, the 70s, 80s, 90s, they didn't have the same sort of chartered flights they have now. They didn't have the same sort of they didn't have the same sort of amenities. And I mean, we're going to see on a year-to-year basis, like USC versus Ohio State. That's going to be freaking awesome. That's going to be sick. Oregon versus Michigan all the time. Penn State versus UCLA. It's going to be awesome. Like Texas versus Bama is going to be incredible. Texas versus Georgia, Oklahoma versus Florida. I mean, guys, we're going to have such good matchups. I don't understand why everyone's so pissy. This is going to be fantastic. And the fact is, like, well, it's regional. No, yeah, I know, but you still have the regional matchups, and you also get the best of both worlds here. It's going to be fantastic. Now, by the way, is the Big Ten kind of a whore? Yeah, I mean, a little bit. I mean, they're going to have 20 teams probably in the Big Ten. They have 18 right now. But the fact is that we're going to get awesome matchups, and we're going to keep our regional ones intact for the most part. There are going to be a few, sure. Do I feel bad for Cal and Stanford and Washington State, Oregon State? Sure. But I mean, like, really, how many of you legitimately are tuning in to see Oregon State versus Cal as an example? No one gives a shit. Like, straight up, no one cares. So, I mean, I love the fact that we're going to have some weird matchups, and it's going to be fantastic. And the weird matchups are going to be great. They're not just going to be good. They're going to be great, especially with Chip Kelly at UCLA, Lincoln Riley at USC, Lanning at Oregon, and if they have the right guy at Washington, I mean, that's going to be a huge step up for the Big Ten. And lastly, last point that I really have for you is that we have the 12 team playoff. I mean, that's coming up next year. And with that being said, there's people who are like, well, now there's all these. Now the thing I always hear now is like, well, there's all these like teams in one conference. It's gonna really water it down, and people are gonna have less opportunity to make the national championship. That would be true if it was 4 teams. But we're gonna have 12 next year. We're gonna have 12 teams next year, and it's gonna be absolutely fantastic. And the thing is that because there's a 12-team playoff, you can have bigger conferences. You're gonna see people get in with 3 losses. You just will. And the fact is that we're going to get the best matchups every single week. And it's going to make college football betting so much more fun. And listen, in college football for my entire life. I mean, my entire life. I'm not like super old, but my entire life, like we've had the have-nots and the have-yots. That's like who's been in charge of college football. Like it hasn't been like, I mean, Boise State had a couple of decent years, and Cincinnati had like 2 good years a few years ago. But if you look at like who's in the national championship every single year, who is it? It's always Alabama. You look at Georgia as of recently. Oregon was there for a few times. Auburn was there with Cam, and also like when they had that other decent team that had that kickoff return for the Iron Bowl. But like if you look at it, it's the same teams every year. It's the USCs, it's the Floridas, it's these teams. It's not going to change. So the fact is, everyone's overreacting because it look a little different. And yeah, will it be weird to say Oregon's part of the Big Ten or like Arizona's part of the Big 12? Also, by the way, with Arizona being the Big 12, that's going to be a fantastic basketball conference. I mean, fantastic basketball conference, especially if they add Gonzaga and UConn, which I heard they're thinking about doing. That'd be awesome. And listen, you're still going to have the Georgias dominate. I mean, it's not going to change the game that much. All it's going to give us is better matchups, crazier matchups. And yeah, the regionality is going to be a little bit weird, but I mean, at the end of the day, who cares? Like, we're still going to have late games. They say Pac-12 after dark is over. It's not. We're still going to have fantastic games, so I'm really excited about that. So guys, listen, that's what I got for you for college football. By the way, guys, we do picks literally every single day, so go check out our pick channel. We went 2-0 under the NFL Hall of Fame game actually a couple days ago. Just came off a winning day in the MLB. And also we have a membership program, so our people can get the best picks. It's linked in the comments below, so definitely check it out.